is there a global war from a lot of people to try to tarnish the name Bitcoin and to tarnish those who hold it? Absolutely, because governments and a lot of powerful entities continue to be afraid of the power of Bitcoin.
Welcome back to AIBC Summit YouTube channel. Well, the most widespread Twitter hacks the platform has ever seen, of accounts including President Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Kanye West, and even Apple. Joining me to take a look at industry impact, we have Fluffy Pony, core member of the Monero team and lead maintainer of Monero until 2019, also known as the man that tried to break the Bitcoin consensus mechanism, and Hartej, who is a leader in the blockchain security industry, currently serving at Credo and a principal at Zokyo, with notable partners and clients including Uber and Facebook.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sure.
Absolute pleasure as always. Now, I want to jump in because I think what we've seen over the last 12 hours, the hackers have been taking over the accounts, then encouraging the public to donate Bitcoin to a digital wallet in which they'll get a 2-to-1 return. And in a short time, this accumulated over $100,000 in funds. So, Riccardo, I'd like to start with you because since the crypto space has been in play, we've witnessed a range of crypto attacks, Mt. Gox, Bitcoin as well. Is this one of the most interesting hacks that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, what I find really interesting about it is that they had so much power that they were able to take over accounts with tens of millions of followers. And all they got out of it was a measly $100,000 that they're going to have to wash which is hard enough as it is. And I think like there's so much stuff they could have done. Like they could have used Elon's account to tweet stuff about the Tesla stock price and shorted it. There's just endless opportunity and they wasted it on like really, frankly, like a 419 scam, not even a very intelligent scam.
Yeah, it's one of the worst scams. They use such a crappy scam, and I think everybody I've talked to today or last night about it said the exact same thing Fluffy Pony just did, which is, did you really not think, I mean, you're a scammer. You didn't think about doing a better scam? You could have manipulated this multiple publicly traded companies in the stock market. You could have made a lot more money. And then by the end of that convo, you're kind of like, well, let's not go down the scamming rabbit hole of what we could have done.
You're tuning in like, if I was gonna do it, I would have done it better. You guys, listen to me next time. But you're right, because I think only 100...
And on top of that, I will add that
yeah.
The only thing I add to that is I can't believe they got into accounts that have multi-factor authentication. At first, I was thinking, oh, they probably just got a couple of people who have bad personal security. And then a bunch of people came out publicly and said, no, I'm using 2FA. And that's a bit mind-blowing. Like it started raising some red flags in my mind of how did they do this? Did they phish an internal employee and step-by-step gain access to Twitter's internal servers? Because the server that is able to do this on the inside has all access. It's, you can call it God mode. Like the God mode server at Twitter was breached. And how that was done, I don't know. My guess is somebody at Twitter internally got spearphished.
And I think that is the latest.
Twitter,
Sorry, go ahead.
Twitter support released a bunch of a statement on it. Was it Twitter engineering, one of the two, to say that it was that exact thing. A bunch of employees that have that like deep admin access for, manually trying to fix someone's account if their email address is, they can't access it anymore. Like those employees were phished. And I guess given Twitter must have some sort of like multi-person authentication for accessing and changing the email on an account with 30 million followers. So they definitely phished more than one person so that they had another person that could validate the change. So, I mean, this was sophisticated up to that point. It's just that what they did with it was relatively unsophisticated.
And Fluffy Pony, I want to go to you now and ask you the likelihood that these funds will ever be found again.
Yeah, I mean, at this point in time, there's enough work that's been done on Bitcoin's privacy that they can flush those funds and wash them pretty trivially. It's not a lot of money. If we're talking about like $10 million, I'd be like, okay, that's a little bit harder for them to work with. But it's such a small amount of money. There's Join Market, there's Samurai, there's Wasabi Wallet, all of which will provide reasonable levels of privacy. They can go through multiple layers of privacy. and then finally go in and out of like some non-KYC coin swap. And that's probably good enough for them to exit.
And what's so interesting about this
Yeah.
is that compared to a cash bank robbery heist that you would see in the 1950s Western, Bitcoin is traceable, and this is actually one of the situations and misconceptions that we do hear about when it comes to how secure is Bitcoin. And feel free, either of you, to answer, but until the funds were moved out of the wallet, it was still very transparent how much was even in there.
Yeah,
contrary to people's belief. Sorry, Fluffy, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the same thing. I mean, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I mean, that's definitely a debate for another time. I do think that the fact that Bitcoin has some degree of traceability has helped it to be accepted by regulators. They feel more comfortable with it. Of course, the lack of privacy is a double-edged sword, as we can see now. It's, it can be good to see like, oh, look, they didn't scam that much or whatever, but it can be bad as well for many people. So it's one of those things where I'm glad that we could see what happened, and we could see that a lot of people didn't fall for the scam, but enough fell for it to make it embarrassing.
And
and I don't think this is a problem with Bitcoin. I think this is a problem with Twitter. And I think that this, and if anything, this maybe someone is trying to make Bitcoin look bad and maybe make it look like the Bitcoin community is affiliated with theft and immoral behavior. And I find it frustrating that a lot of the media are framing these hackers as Bitcoin hackers or Bitcoin scammers. And it's just trying to put a tarnished reputation on Bitcoin and its community, when in reality, this was not a problem with the design of Bitcoin by Satoshi Nakamoto. This was a security breach of Twitter as a corporation who has been breached.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, like when they managed to gain control of the Ripple account, they asked for Ripple. So they were largely indiscriminate. They sort of went, well, what will work with most of the followers to this account? And Bitcoin is the easiest to buy. It's the most prolific. It's the one that everyone would understand. If they'd asked for Ethereum, yes, I mean, they might have gotten some, but like the reality is that a lot of people that saw the tweets who aren't in the crypto space would have gone like, what will Ripple people want to send? They'll want to send Ripple.
And also the counter argument for the Twitter hack, but also not just this specific argument, is that so Twitter platform has a search blacklist and trends blacklist button that admins have. So there's a censorship element with Twitter. We also saw in 2018 Facebook really censoring phrases like blockchain and crypto. And then the crypto purge in 2019 around Christmas time, where accounts were deactivated. So is this actually also an argument that censorship of information means that people are more likely to fall for these kind of hacks and these kind of scams because actual information is also being censored yearly?
Yeah, to some degree, what I find interesting is, Twitter's got the blue tick thing, right? The verified accounts thing. And I get it. I mean, I ended up getting verified by Twitter because a bunch of scammers impersonated my account. And try to scam followers. So I totally understand the value of the little blue tick, but the problem is it's been viewed as like the ultimate solution to this. And so people have stopped trying to exercise any degree of independent thought, and they just go, oh, it's got a blue tick, it must be legit.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there as well. And I think there almost needs to be a reevaluation of that. So following on from what we saw as well, so we've discussed that we saw Jack Dorsey tweeting out and actually saying that, this was something where it was internal, the hack itself. I now want to look at the hidden messages that were found in the transactions, because this is something that the crypto community are finding particularly interesting. There was hashtag Twitter hack, Bitcoin's address, you take the risk when you use Bitcoin for Twitter game, Bitcoin is traceable, why not use Monero? And I want to start by asking, Fluffy Pony, what was your take when you saw this?
I mean, look, so to send those messages to the specially crafted outputs cost whoever did that like 50 US cents. It's not an expensive exercise. Of course, it did. It's very funny that someone even bothered to do that and took the time. But it's cute that they did that, a little bit cheeky. But I mean, I don't expect that next time a scammer does something like this, probably not on this level ever again, but next time something like this happens, I certainly don't expect the scammers are going to go like, oh, pay me in Monero. You know, I mean, Monero addresses are 95 characters. They're too long for most tweets.
Yeah, there's no Monero user I know on this earth that would fall for this scam. Do I know people who have Bitcoin that would fall for this? Yes, there's a lot of gullible people that have Bitcoin. A lot of people were gifted a couple $100 of Bitcoin. My uncle can barely use his smartphone. He has Bitcoin.
This is a really good point, actually, and this is something that we were kind of discussing off air is, who do you think were the target audience for this scam? Because there is a really quick onboarding process now for crypto users. Were they newbies? Were they people that hold Bitcoin and don't know how to use it? You've given the good example of your uncle, so what do you think?
Stupid people?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't know how else to put it. I don't know what else to say. Like,
yeah.
Give me one, I'll give you two. Give me two, I'll give you four. If you believe this type of rhetoric, you're a moron. And if you're smart enough to know what Monero is and you have it, I highly doubt you fell for this scam. It's not happening. Yeah. If someone who has Ripple fell for it, I wouldn't be shocked.
And I also,
people who I know invested in Ripple don't even hold Bitcoin. They were like, I heard this is a good thing.
Ripple's the next Bitcoin. I'm gonna hold Ripple instead.
Yeah. I know some Wall Streeters that had faith this would replace Swift, so they were like, I just hold Ripple. None of that scam Bitcoin stuff.
And do you think now this whole scam Bitcoin reputation will reappear? Because I think throughout 2020, Bitcoin's done quite a good job of keeping a very solid reputation, and price fluctuations have been fairly minimal compared to the 2020 chaos that we have seen. Is this going to jeopardize the crypto space, the Bitcoin community, you think?
No,
I don't think this specifically is going to jeopardize anything. It's this specific case, no. Is there a global war from a lot of people to try to tarnish the name Bitcoin and to tarnish those who hold it? Absolutely, because governments and a lot of powerful entities continue to be afraid of the power of Bitcoin. And for that reason, you'll find often in the media the Bitcoiners kind of being thrown under the bus, and including the media coverage for this specific hack. That's probably more my personal frustration with this is the media referring to Bitcoin in a dark light, referring to these hackers as Bitcoin hackers. That's more my issue with all of this. No one really cares about the $118,000 that these shitty hackers stole. Cool, you got 118 grand. It's impressive how they got access. Impressive how sophisticated the hack was, though. That's for sure. And I'm looking forward to Twitter releasing all of the notes.
And it kind of poses a larger question. If we take the cryptocurrency element away from the hack, of this could potentially start a war, having someone that has the capacity to reach these hugely influential Twitter accounts. It poses a bigger question here than the privacy coin Bitcoin debate. It actually poses a much larger question.
Yeah, I thought about that as well. And, you know, we sort of alluded to it in our discussion earlier that they could have tanked Tesla's stock price and shorted it, but they could have done a lot more damage. I mean, the reality is they compromised people like Joe Biden and Barack Obama that have got incredible political sway, not only domestically in the US, but internationally. And I mean, there could have been untold damage if they started tweeting things, you know, that are, I don't know, anti-China, anti-Russia, and so on. So it could have been.
I think that there was. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that it could have been extremely dangerous.
Yeah, and on top of that, I think that they were making some geopolitical statements as well. They hacked into Jeff Epstein's account and said, "I didn't kill myself. Send me Bitcoin." You know, that's cool, kind of. But you know, there was definitely some geopolitical incentives here. Possibly, is my guess. There could have been some geopolitical motivations behind this hack.
And
Yeah.
very US centric as well, based on the people that were targeted.
Absolutely, US centric. I mean, they didn't go after any like major Chinese or whatever Russian influences. Although those largely exist on more native or more geographically native platforms, but still, there's plenty of them on.
But didn't they start with Binance?
They started with Binance, but I feel like Binance was just like low-hanging fruit. I wonder if they didn't go through it alphabetically and go like, oh, this is the first big one that we've come across. They also started. This is something that I noticed. They started with crypto accounts. It was Binance, Easy, Gemini, KuCoin,
Cash
all
App
of the
as well. Things that bounty hunt normally, yes.
Yeah, and then when they realized that they maybe weren't getting the pickup that they expected, that's when they went onto Elon's account, and from Elon they just branched out.
It was really interesting. And do you think, I think also when there's the issue with people that, tokens that actually release kind of bounty incentives and trying to onboard more users, did that almost provide a gateway for this hack actually being something that could have been to a certain extent semi-plausible?
Yeah, I mean, look, the running joke is that the tweet from Justin Sun wasn't a scam. It is. I mean, it's obviously a joke, but like the reality is, it is the sort of stunt that someone like Justin would pull. Maybe and then just like never return or return Bitcoin to the first 100 people, and then never to anyone else, and be like, I'll give you BitTorrent token instead, and a free ticket to our next conference. So I mean, like, I could totally see that happening.
So now the privacy coin debate is kind of Zcash and Monero. Are they going to be seen as more attractive now? We've seen positive movement from Monero from a price perspective. I think on the release of the transcript of the wallet sending address. So what's your thoughts on the future of these privacy coins?
I mean, I like to think that there's hopefully a general openness towards privacy enhancing tools. Some regulators are starting to come around. I mean, there's always going to be regulators that are like, we should ban encryption and put backdoors into encryption. But some regulators are starting to come around, and I think there's a general sense, and this is not really privacy coin specific, but more privacy in general. People are starting to be a little bit more picky with their internet connections. They're starting to look at VPNs just generally because they don't want their ISP spying on them. They'd rather the VPN provider does. And Tor is seeing an uptick. Signal, Wire, privacy enhancing messaging apps are seeing an uptick. So I think there's a general sense of it is time to reclaim our privacy. After the Cambridge Analytica stuff and a lot of the major hacks we've seen, people are realizing that they don't want their data to be owned by a platform if they can avoid it.
And
I mean, in Japan, the Japanese FSA announced on June 18th that they're, pulling 4 major privacy coins from their exchanges. They pulled Augur, Monero, Dash, and Zcash from their platforms in Japan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right, and there's definitely a war from centralized governments against privacy coins.
And from
there's a lot of power behind them.
Yeah, completely. And cross-border.
For me, it's a human right. I view it as a human right, but this is a very highly controversial opinion. For me, I believe it a human right for me to both hold and transfer privacy coins. Fluffy's my friend, and if he sells me his Tracers Don't Float T-shirt, I'm going to send him Zcash, and that's nobody's business on this planet. No one needs to know about this transaction.
Although we would all be really intrigued to see how much you would pay for the T-shirt.
Yeah, and lots of Monero. But fundamentally, it's like Satoshi Nakamoto in the white paper was very specific about his vision of, if you go to purchase something, say a beer, the bartender should not have the power to know what I purchased before and after this beer. Right? And so this is just fundamental concepts of being in the world of crypto. Read a book called Satoshi's Notes. It's a compilation of all of Satoshi's notes and emails that he ever gave us. And it's in that book that I remember reading this. It's important to understand Satoshi's vision is what I would encourage anyone watching this video, is understand how this entire world of crypto and decentralized currencies actually started and what was their philosophy. Because I think that a lot of people got into this space not during Bitcoin, but they got into it after Ethereum, and they were encouraged by a friend to participate in the initial coin offering of something that will make them 10x their money or 5x their money. And that was their initial exposure. And there's a very large group of people who came into this space during that time. And yeah, it's important for those people to all take a step back and learn what is Bitcoin and what are privacy coins, and to buy them before governments make it more difficult to acquire and hold.
Yep, fully agree.
That was a fantastic final message, so thank you so much. And Fluffy Pony, I have to ask you now as a final message, what would you say to the people that are out there maybe suggesting that this hack that we just seen was actually just a fantastic marketing tool from Monero?
I mean, look, I think with something this this big and this public, like, Twitter's not going to rest until the perpetrator is found or perpetrators are found. I think to do something like this as a publicity stunt would just be insane. And I think it's not good publicity for Bitcoin. It's not good publicity for Monero. It's exceptionally bad publicity for Twitter. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what comes of this, but certainly Monero and Bitcoin will escape unscathed compared to the lashing Twitter's going to get.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
well, gentlemen,
I think people who have Monero have better things to do.
Yes, you mentioned. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time today. It was an absolute pleasure to get your insights and to hear your thoughts on such a pressing matter, such short notice. So I really, really appreciate your time.